the chanting.
Yoso Bhagava Arahang Sama Sambuddho Sawakato Yena Bhagavata Dhammo Supatipano Yasa Bhagavato Sawaka Sangho Tamayang Bhagavantang Sadhamang Sasangang Ime Hisakare Hiyatarahang Aropite Hiyapi Pujayama Sadhuno Bante Bhagava Suchira Parinipotopi Pachima Janata Nukampa Ime Sakare Dugata Panakala Bhute Patigan Hatu Amhakang Dikharatang Hitaya Sukhaya Alahang Sama Sambuddho Bhagava Buddhang Bhagavantang Abhivademi Suwakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Bhagavato Sawaka Sangho Sanghang Namami Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Sama Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Sama Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Sama Sambuddhassa Iti Piso Bhagava Arahang Sama Sambuddho Vichacharana Sampano Sugato Lokavidu Anuttaro Purissa Dhammasarati Sata Deva Manu Sanang Buddho Bhagava Tamahang Bhagavantang Abhipujayami Tamahang Bhagavantang Sirasa Namami Suwakato Bhagavata Dhammo Sanditiko Akaliko Ehipasiko Opanayiko Pachatang Veditapo Vinyuhi Tamahang Dhammang Abhipujayami Tamahang Dhammang Sirasa namami. Supatipano Bhagavato Sawaka Sangho. Ujjapatipano Bhagavato Sawaka Sangho. Yaya Patipano Bhagavato Sawaka Sangho. Samiti Patipano Bhagavato Sawaka Sangho. Yatitang Chatari Purisa Yugani Atta Purisa Pugala Esa Bhagavato Sawaka Sangho. Ahuneyo Pahuneyo Dakineyo Anjali Karaniyo Anutarang Punya Ketang Lokasa Tamahang Sangang Abhipujayami Tamahang Sangang Sirasa Namami. This is what should be done by one who is skilled in goodness and the path of peace. Let them be able and upright, straightforward and gentle in speech, humble and not conceited, contented and easily satisfied, not busy with duties, and frugal in their ways, peaceful and calm, and wise and skillful, not proud and demanding in nature. Let them not do the slightest thing that the wise would later reprove, wishing in gladness and in safety. May all beings be happy. Whatever living beings there may be, whether they are weak or strong, omitting none, the great or the mighty, medium, short or small, the seen and the unseen, those living near and far away, those born and to be born, may all beings be happy. Let none deceive another, or despise any being in any state. Let none through anger or ill will wish harm upon another, even as a mother protects with her life her child, her only child. So with a boundless heart should one cherish all living beings, radiating kindness over the entire world, spreading upwards to the skies and downwards to the depths, outwards and unbounded, free from hatred and ill will, where standing or walking, seated or lying down, freed from drowsiness. One should sustain this recollection. This is said to be the sublime abiding, by not holding to false use. The pure-hearted one, having clarity of vision, being free from all sense desires, is not born again into this world. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Just like Ajahn said, whatever you do, give it everything you've got. Put a bit extra in. Sometimes people say, oh, Ajahn Brahm, you're just making up all these little things like, the chanting which I do, and sadhu, 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 or just, some of the chants which we do, the Sabhavogrini Muto, and just really bring it up at the end. But this is part of the Thai forest tradition, believe it or not. Because there was one monk I went to see. He was a very famous monk called Ajahn Singtong. And when I went, I was just 5 rains. And one part of the tradition there was to go from place to place for some solitude, but also to visit some other teachers as well, to get some more information, more ways of doing things, extra little teachings. And this monk, I was 5 years as a monk, and I was sitting next to him, the second monk. Now, he was, I don't know how many years as a monk. And when he started chanting, he did the usual blessing chant you do at the monasteries, Yata Wari Waha Pura Pari Parenti Sagarang. But the way he did it, it literally blew my mind. I'll never forget it. And this is imitating it as best I possibly can. He went, Yata Wari Waha Pura Pari Parenti Sagarang Ewa mewa ito dinang petanang upaka ichitang patitang tumhang kipa mewa sami jatu sabe parenti sangapa. And I didn't know whether he was doing it just to entertain me. But apparently he did that to every time. And he really gives so much energy into that chanting. I couldn't believe just how the Thai villagers loved him. And he was just a beautiful monk. He was a very great meditator, supposed to be enlightened, and I wasn't living long enough with him to find out properly. But he was certainly an incredibly impressive monk. But unfortunately what happened to him, remember that big plane crash in 1980 or something, in Thailand, and he was one of the monks involved in that, and so he died young. Such a great shame, because he really had a lot of wisdom, great meditator. We also had that charisma. And I always remember what he did there, just a bit of extra happiness and energy. And of course, just having grown up in a Christian tradition, and having gone to church was so boring in those days. I mean, it really was. It's cold wooden seats and just, stone walls, and it was cold, and you went in there and you were just told how evil you were. I've never done that to you. I thought about it a few times. but it had no life. And to me, just going to some of those teachers, and it was traditional Buddhism, it really made it very open to me that there was something missing in those spiritual paths which had no joy, no laughter, no fun. There was something very, very missing. And that was just the energy. And of course, for those who want to check me out, you can just go and look at the suttas. It's called the Dhammacettiya Sutta. It's in the Majjhima Nikaya somewhere. I don't know the number, but just look Dhammacettiya. I've already mentioned it. That was very clear that when the king went to visit the Buddha in the Jetavana monastery, the Jeta Grove monastery, and when the Buddha asked the king, so why do you like coming here? One of the things, the king wasn't a great meditator, but one of the things which really cheered up the king was all the monks in that monastery. It was a monks' monastery. All the monks in that monastery are always smiling and happy. Would you like to go to a place where you're miserable all the time? You're not sitting properly. Put that teddy bear down. Stop laughing. No one likes to go to a place like that, because that's like going to work. But you know what I mean. Yeah, you know what I mean, that sometimes, and is that real enlightened beings, compassionate beings? Compassionate beings, just they may not talk to you, but they still smile at you to give you a little gift of their own inner happiness. And sometimes that's all that's needed. So sometimes in this sutta, the Buddha said, yeah, that's what you can expect, Your Majesty. When people meditate and they get insight, you can expect them to be happier. The more suffering you end, the more happiness appears. Pretty obvious, isn't it? And that really encouraged me in the religious life. I'm not going to stick this out. It's going to have to be happy. Anyway, dear Ajahn, how do you deal with interpersonal conflict? It's very easy, because there's no person there anyway. So then there's no conflict. The second way of dealing with it is, in most of the places where I go, I'm the boss. That makes it really easy. You just tell monks, that's right. And nuns too. I can quote in the Vinaya where you can't argue with me. And that's the other saying. I was going to put this on the board of my quotes, which Leha always puts up every morning. Do you see the quote I put up there for tomorrow morning? That's for tomorrow morning. You can write it out there. Okay. But I was in interpersonal conflict with either that saying, which is you see tomorrow morning, or that other saying, the advice of a great enlightened master to their disciple. I think I mentioned it before to you, but I didn't really exaggerate it or emphasize it. It's profundity. So the master was asked by a disciple, the disciple was going to go somewhere else, before I leave, can you give me some really practical advice? And the master said, disciple, never argue with an idiot. And that's when the disciple said, that doesn't sound right, that's not compassionate. To which the master said, yeah, you're right. I'm not going to argue with you. I mentioned that before, but it's still funny. And number 3 is interpersonal conflict. Welcome to life. Have you ever seen 2 people, 3 people, 4, 5, 6 people, and a dozen people, which don't, which are always in harmony, which always see the same thing? So I know this is an old answer, an old simile, but it hasn't really been surpassed. And that is the simile, most Buddhists know this, you hear this in your Dhamma school for kids, is the elephant. The elephant and the 7 blind men. Actually, that's really old, isn't it? We can't have 7 blind men anymore. I have to have 7 blind people. So members of the male, female, and LGBTQIA. But they're all blind. Since birth. They've never seen an elephant before in their lives. So the king wants to teach his ministers, the politicians, always arguing with each other. So all the politicians had to come. And all the committees of all societies, including our BSWA society, had to come. And everyone else had to come. And the king led these 7 blind men, everybody knew them, and led them to the elephant. This blind men, women, LGBTQIA, let's call it blind people. This is an elephant. And of course, they've never seen an elephant before. So they put one hand of the elephant on the trunk, one on the ears, one on the tusks, one on the head, one on the body, one on the legs, one on the tail. And I asked each blind man, what is an elephant? And you all know the story. They said elephant, because they felt that the tusks is a plough. It's hard. Farmers use it to dig the earth. No, it can't be a plough, you ignoramus. It must be a snake. They felt the trunk. It can't be a snake. It's too flat to be a snake, said the one who felt the ears. It's a fan to keep you cool. No way, said the one who felt the head. It is a pot. It's too big to be a pot, said the one who felt the body. It's a big rock. Impossible, you're all mad. I'm the only one who really knows the truth here. Elephant is a tree trunk. Felt the legs. It can't be, it's a snake, said the one who felt the tail. Oh, no, it's a fly whisk. Fly whisk. You don't know fly whisk, but in China we used to use fly whisk, to sort of keep the mosquitoes and flies off. So they all argued what an elephant was, and they had a fight. I don't know how they had a fight when they were blind, but that was in the story. But thank you for laughing. Please, the next retreat she gets in for free when I'm teaching it. It encourages me. Anyway, what happens next? So they're all fighting and they stopped it. And then the wise, after they came to their senses, the wise blind Then they took 7 blind monks and nuns to feel the elephant. And they came up with the same solution, because the one who felt the tail said it was a fly whisk. The one who felt the trunk said it was a plough. But instead of arguing, because monks and nuns never argue, do we? Instead, not in public anyway, we can keep it quiet. So instead they said an elephant is this big rock on 4 tree trunks with a fly whisk at the back, a big pot on the front, just on either side of the middle of the pot, down a little bit, is like these 2 ploughs with a big snake, like a big python in the middle, and 2 fans on either side of that pot. When you think about it, that's a pretty good description of an elephant to someone who had never seen one. And the difference is, instead of arguing, because we all have a limited experience of truth. So instead of arguing who's got it right, we join everything together. We combine rather than compete. And then you get a far better picture of the truth when you respect other people and their experience of the truth. And instead of you're wrong and I'm right, we're both right, we're seeing things from a different angle, so let's combine everything. And then you get this wonderful non-conflict, in interpersonal relations, they're harmonious, and we value what other people say, because they add to our picture of an elephant. Of course, I cannot finish the story without giving the elephant's perspective, because once upon a time there were 7 blind elephants, and they always wanted to know what a human being was. So they met together and they discussed it and said, well, the only way to really find out is through personal experience. So let's all go and find a person each, feel them, and come back to see what an elephant is. Unlike human beings, the elephants didn't have interpersonal conflict because they all agreed that a human being was flat. Yeah. Squash. Okay, next question. Do lay people have any chance at all? No. You don't have chance, you do chance in the morning and evening. I'm trying my best. Do they have any opportunity at all, realistically, at stream entry? Of course you do. No worries. How many stream winners were there in the time of the Buddha? There were heaps of them. If you could do it then, can't you do it now? Why not? Anyone want to be a stream winner? Put your hand up if you really want to be a stream winner. Okay, please shave your hair and report tomorrow morning to go to Dhammasala. Yeah, of course you can. But do you really want to be a stream winner? That's the problem. If you answered yes to that question, you've got no hope. No wanting. Letting go. Being peaceful. Not doing this as me being a stream winner, but you vanishing, disappearing. Or should one attain to have a first shot at it? Shooting a stream winner, he had a first shot in this lifetime. Of course it's possible for a lay person to be a stream winner, and there are many people who are stream winners who are lay people. But it's possible to use a bicycle from here in Nollamara to Sydney. It's possible, but I wouldn't recommend it. It's easier to go in an aircraft. That's what the aircrafts are there for, comfortable travel. So if you were going to go to Sydney, what would you go to Sydney? Sometimes you might go in a car for a bit of an adventure, or in the Indian Pacific train. But who would go on a bicycle all the way to Sydney? Be crazy. There's many crazy people, though. But anyway, so that's, if you really want to become enlightened, why not go on Air Buddha? Otherwise known as the Sangha. Because that is why the Buddha established the Sangha. For men and women to be able to get the most convenient path to enlightenment. But it's still possible as a lay person, but it's just a little bit more troublesome. But if you can't, for some reason, live as a monastic, it's amazing what you can do at home these days. Because people they get pensions when they get old, they don't need to do very much, and they can have very simple lifestyle in their homes. So there you have the possibilities of simplicity and not having very much. People actually do sleep on the floor as lay people. And they find it very comfortable. They don't need a TV. Some of them don't even need a mobile phone. I already said that's one thing which I do not have. I don't have a mobile phone. I have a tablet, but it has got no phone service on it. We tried to get one once, but we didn't actually get the right Telstra thing or whatever. It doesn't matter, it's great. No one can actually give me a call. Yay! Because imagine if I had a mobile phone, imagine what would happen. You'd be ringing me up night and day. And if I restrict the number, I'd only give it to 1 or 2 people. You'd soon find out, wouldn't you? Venerable, what's that Ajahn Brahm's number? I can't say. Do you want a nice donation for your nun's monastery? So anyway, it's nice not having that. And next question. Also a long question, oh my goodness. Venerable Ajahn, as I understand, applied and sustained thoughts in the first jhana of the breath and a continuous stay with the breath. No, that's wrong understanding. Because This is Vitaka Vichara. And those two things, for people and translators who haven't experienced jhanas, sometimes they say that it's applied and sustained thinking. And I think, oops, wrong word. You all know now that thinking is quite coarse. It's a disturbance of the mind. And it doesn't lead to basically to anything which is profound. It just leads to many more arguments. So instead, we calm down that thought and get some silence in the mind. And when that's have the silence, then you can be aware of your breathing. Sometimes the breath is delightful, it's profound. But you don't give the breath a name, long, short, or brilliant, or whatever, and you don't have a conversation about it. You're just with the breath. Your mind is being simplified, and it's very still. And even a long way before, those nimittas or jhanas, you're hardly thinking or saying anything at all. And many of you experience that, the silence of the mind. And even you have nimittas. Remember that simile of the still forest pool? You're an Ajahn and you're looking at these amazing animals coming out of the forest, similarly nimittas or jhanas. And if you say anything, wow, or just try and take a note, that's a blue nimitta, that's a yellow, they go away straight away. You're just disturbing them. You've got to have that silence inside. So what Vitaka Vichara mean in that context, because words are not defined by the dictionary, they're defined by the words which surround them. Context. And it's quite clear that those words in that context of jhanas, that means it's a movement of your mind. Subverbal is what they usually call it these days. When the mind is moving onto the object and holding it. And the reason why that happens, you're really sort of away from the body, away from thinking a long time ago. So you have this beautiful image in your mind of joy, happiness. The breath is long gone. This piti sukha, incredible bliss. And it is the bliss which is directly caused by your five senses shutting down and just not moving anywhere, just there. Bliss of the mind, freed from all this five sense activity, and with free of the five sense activity, you might as well say free of the body as well for a while. And if you just feel your body and know it, there's much of it you know as an irritation, but when it totally goes, you realize how much of an irritation it really was, huge. And that's the tadpole becoming a frog and leaving the lake temporarily for a while. Bliss. But then what happens is that bliss is very strong. It draws you in. And at this point, because you're not 100% letting go, 99.9%, there's still a little bit of holding on to this bliss. Understandably, but not enough holding on to really break the meditation. So you're holding on, and because you're holding on, it becomes unstable. You move away from the bliss, and you move back towards it, then you move away again. It's the best word which I could come up with was that the wobble of the first jhana. And of course, for many people who have a first jhana, that wobble they can hardly notice at all, because you're right so close to the bliss, or just right inside of it. It's hard to really understand afterwards, what was actually happening. You're just blissing out. It's amazing. But that's what the first jhana is, the wobble, piti sukha, and it happens because you're holding on. And very lightly, but still there's some grasping there. And that's why it all falls apart. No, sorry, I shouldn't have used that word. It doesn't all fall apart, it just becomes unstable. You move away, but it's just so blissful, you move straight back in again. That's the Vitaka Vichara. Vitaka is moving on to it, Vichara is holding on to it, but not thinking. And then what happens next, for those of you who know your suttas, you have the 1.5 jhana between the first and the second. And that is where the vitaka stops. But the vichara is still there. It's an in-between. What's happening there is you're still holding on to the bliss. But it's not enough, to actually to disturb you or cause instability. You just stay there. So because you don't move away from it, you don't have to move back onto it. And that's with vichara, but not with any vitaka. And of course, then eventually, you don't need to hold on anymore. It's stable. And they say the word is that you have, I think, sampasadanang with the experience. Samprasadana means you have confidence, faith, you don't need to do anything. That's where you totally let go. Which means that you don't move. All you have is this beautiful object, bliss, piti sukha, but that's actually born of stillness. It's a different flavor. That's a real still mind, nothing moving at all. And you think, isn't that boring? Ooh, no way. These are ecstasy states. And that's where the vitaka vichara both ended. And it's not thinking. You cannot think in a jhana. To me, it's preposterous for people who can claim that. They know the words in Pali, but because they don't know the experience, they just mistake. The meaning of words is always in context. Okay, and of course the breath has gone a long time ago. Almost in all instances, the nimitta arises either when the breath has disappeared or when it's become very subtle. Yeah. As a nimitta is the gateway to the first jhana, what are the applied and sustained thoughts when the breath has disappeared? I'll just explain that. It's a movement of the mind. It hasn't totally settled down and stopped. Subverbal, but the mind's still moving. Is the perception of the knowledge of breath just disappeared? No. Thank you very much for the great teachings with reverence and metta. Yeah. So that's always the best way to ask questions, with a nice bit of praise in the end. Thank you. I've had some visually violent, explicitly graphic dreams while I've been here, which seems weird for such a peaceful place. Any thoughts on this? Violent, expressive, graphic dreams. Sometimes it is because we always tend to control when we're meditating, unless you really know how to let go. And if you really let go deeply, then of course you won't have those dreams. What's actually happening, because we're trying, that does create some instability in your mind, which you may not be able to do anything about while you are conscious and alert. But when you go to bed at night and you let go, that tendency will be there in your mind. And also, secondly, because you're not doing much when you're here, your brain has all this extra energy, which it doesn't usually have when you're working or with your family and kids and husband suffering and wife suffering and kids suffering and grandparents suffering and all just boss suffering. So remember, when you're out there in the world, you get very tired. So sometimes, your brain doesn't have the capacity to have very vivid dreams. But when you don't do much, here on a retreat, your brain gets a little bit more power, gets charged up, and so if you do have a dream, it's like enhanced. It's more clear. But it could be a violent dream or whatever, but it's only a dream. Just your mind or your brain just getting rid of its spam. So disregard it as spam. It's nothing which you need to be ashamed about. You don't need to own it and think, oh, I'm going crazy, I'm going mad, I have these violent dreams, oh, what's going on? Don't leave it alone. It's just a nice dream. And sometimes people like those violent dreams, because then they go to these violent movies about zombies. I'm not talking about the walking meditation zombies. The real zombies caught up behind you and eat you. I couldn't understand, why do people like violent movies? Why do people like to go to these, theme parks, where you have the death drop? You sit in this machine and just boom, it goes right down. Or you go upside down. I thought it was pretty scary when I was a kid, just going up and down on these roller coasters. But it's got really much more traumatic since I was a kid. You go upside down really fast, think you're dying, twirl around, and goodness me. I thought that's what you do to somebody you capture to torture them to get a confession out of them. Maybe that's what they're doing, to get their kids. If you don't behave, I'll send you on one of these upside down death drops. I think that's child abuse. Well, why do people get like those terror things? There's one of the woman who comes here. I don't mind saying it, remember Book Palini? She said that her mum, when they were living in Thailand, mum was like Chinese Thai, once a week would go to the movies, the Chinese movies. And every week she'd come back with red eyes. She'd always take lots of tissues with her. They were always weepies, always. I said, well, what are they? He said, it's always boy and girl fall in love, and either the parents or the Imperial Army or a big tsunami or an explosion or something. They never, ever managed to have a happy ending. And that's why she knew it wouldn't be a happy ending. Someone would get involved and the prince would kill the guy or something. So why do you go to them if it's always sad? Oh, it's so nice having a cry. I can't understand that. It's going to be a weepy and you still go. It's going to be really violent and terrifying, you still go. Why? Because sometimes people like to be stimulated. They don't like peace. They like excitement, stimulation, fear. You feel more alive. Do you? It's strange, isn't it? The closer you are to death, the more alive you feel. Why? You don't need that adrenaline boost to feel alive. You'd be so peaceful and get a samadhi boost, much better than adrenaline. Go in the Jhana drop machine. Wow. It's much more powerful. So anyway, but anyway, if you're fed up with the violent dreams, you've had enough of them, again, there's what to do. And the Buddha actually said this, and it's very true. When you're in bed at night, just before you go to sleep, you're on your pillow, tucked in, everything is just all nice and perfect for you, everything's warm, you turn the lights off. Now is the time to make a resolution. I'll have a beautiful, peaceful sleep. And remember all the wonderful things you've experienced today. Don't remember the jokes, because that might sort of give you violent dreams towards me. That joke, how can you tell that joke? And so when you have even a little sense of humour, you can laugh at those demons and violence. And it's only a dream, you're creating it, you can create whatever dream you want. It's so nice to know you have that power of your dreams. You can take them wherever you want. So if you do see any monsters in the dreams, go, the monster. I'm more of a monster than you are. Let's have a monster fight. Or anything which is, violent, a dream, so they can't hurt you. So anyway, make a resolution when you go to bed at night. Think of all the beautiful things you've done. Don't think all the times you've broken precepts and stuff like that. That'll make you negative. Pick up some positivity when you go to bed. My knees have been so aching, just all day meditating and just eating food and listening to Ajahn Brahm. Now I'm in my bed, stretch out, nice and comfortable. Oh, this feels so good and it's so quiet. Oh, yeah. Then you have a wonderful night's sleep with some good dreams. So that's how to do it. But it's very common that people have more negative dreams on the last night of the retreat, because it's so unhappy to feel this retreat's going to end tomorrow. Oh, that's why I told you earlier that you're wearing black. Why is she wearing all black today? Because the retreat's ending tomorrow. She's already in mourning. Anyway, look, it's a peaceful place, but it's a peaceful place people can make a lot of noise. Ajahn, having dealt with an addictive nature most of my life, I became a yoga addict to curb anxiety and emotional issues. I told the yoga guru I felt addicted. He said it was a good addiction to have. Well done, yoga teacher. I didn't like his response. Oops. Look what it says here. I didn't like his response at the time. Okay. And I wondered if you could make any comment and or kind approach to nipping addiction of any type as they appear to arise. Thank you very much, and always for everything. You have brought us... Oh, okay. I haven't brought you. I didn't bribe you. Okay. Oh, for everything you have brought to us, yeah. Okay, addictions. There's this wonderful story, which many of you know because I quote it often, in the Pasadika Sutta of the Digha Nikaya, when the Buddha told one of his disciples, if other people of other faiths and religions, scientists, skeptics, atheists or whatever, they come up to you and say, are you addicted to pleasure? You say, well, most pleasures we aren't, but some pleasures we are. He said as monks, are you addicted to the sense pleasures? He said, no, we're not addicted to sense pleasures. Are you addicted to the pleasure of meditation? Yes, we're addicted to that. It's hard not to be. I already mentioned some incredible ecstasies. When you get addicted to that, if you just even got it once, oh, that's joyful, that's wonderful. Oh. But then the Buddha said, and you should also tell them what happens to anybody who's addicted to the pleasures of the mind, like in jhanas. What happens to them? And this was I couldn't really call it killer, the amazing statement of the Buddha. Anyone who's addicted to the pleasures of meditation will only get four things. This is only the four possibilities if you get addicted to the pleasures of meditation. You'll either be a stream winner, a once-returner, a non-returner, or fully enlightened. The four stages of enlightenment, one of those four. That's what happens if you really start indulging, be addicted in jhanas. And that's all you can have. It's not a bad deal, is it? Is it? So, if you really get into those, you get to that third stage of enlightenment, the non-returner. And the only difference between a non-returner and the fully enlightened being is again the addiction to the jhanas. And a little bit of thoughts of your existence. But once as many monks say, many great teachers, they say it's the other addictions are the hard ones to let go of. Addiction to the five senses and all your duties, your family, your kids, your body, your success in your life, or whatever other people think of you. All those addictions are really hard. But once you get into the jhanas and all those addictions are just vanquished, the last little addiction between jhana and enlightenment is a pretty simple one. That's a nice question. Dear Ajahn, how does nekama as making peace reconcile with your insight that it means not picking up? Because nekama is my translation. It's not an accurate translation, I will admit that. Nekama means renunciation. And one of the nice things, when you ever go to Malaysia or Singapore, they always say someone who ordains as a monk or a nun, you renounce. You're a renunciant. And I don't know who started that word, but it's accurate. Well done. Are you ready to renounce yet? Are you ready to ordain? And that's actually nekama. Is that really nasty, nekama? But the other place where nekama comes up, and I did mention this when I was talking about the jhanas, is the happiness of nekama, nekama sukha. You know what Nekama Sukha describes? The bliss in the first jhana. He gives it all these wonderful names like Nekama Sukha, the bliss of renunciation of your five senses. Oh, it's wonderful. But you know the other thing, when I read this the first time in Pali, this really gave me the goosebump moment again. You get lots of goosebumps when you meditate and you read the suttas. And then this was the other thing they called it was Sambodhi Sukha, Nekama Sukha and Sambodhi Sukha. And I know my Pali, Sambodhi means enlightenment. He was actually saying, and said many times by the Buddha, how it feels in even first jhana is the bliss of enlightenment. And everybody knows it's not enlightenment, but you get a taste of what it's like, enlightenment. It's close enough for the Buddha to say this is the bliss of enlightenment. Sambodhi Sukha. Ooh, that's powerful. So anyway, not picking up is actually how to eventually experience that nekama. It's renouncing. You give up things, but then you go and pick up something else. You renounce that and you pick up something else. And we always tend to pick up things because that's our sense of self. That's what the sense of self does. It picks up things and tries to own them. You let go of one thing and you get attached to another thing. So that's why you've got to be very careful, because that's the addiction of the self, to own stuff, pick things up. So it's hard to let things go. And that's why I said when I went into Ajahn Chah's room, it was so empty. And it wasn't because he was poor. By that time, there were so many amazing, rich, wealthy, and powerful people visiting him and giving him stuff. But he didn't keep any of it. In his room, his personal quarters was empty. Imagine that, a monk of his age having a wooden pillow and just no mattress, just a straw mat. That was just mind-blowing for me. I just came out there, wow. Anyway, do you get car sick? Sometimes I get sick of cars, but not sick in a car. And the reason sometimes you get sick of cars is that, quite honestly, and you know this, that sometimes you just want to have some exercise. And sometimes you're walking, like even happened the other day, walking just in the afternoon from here over to Bodhinyana Monastery to check in with the monks. Oh, do you need a lift? Why do you ask me that? I need exercise. Oh no, Ajahn Brahm, you're too valuable to have exercise. What might happen on the journey? You might get hit by a car, a tree might fall on top of you, you might have a snake bite you, and you might get kidnapped. There's many monasteries haven't got a good monk. So, the people in Melbourne, they might have kidnapped me, or sometimes, it almost happened once. Almost got kidnapped. It's a true story. In Indonesia, we were flying from one place to another and giving a talk. It's like one night stands in each little city. And there's another Buddhist group that invited me to go and give a talk in their place, but couldn't fit it in. You know what they did? At the airport, they had their car, and they came up to me, "Oh, Ajahn Brahm, welcome again to this city." I won't say where it is. "Please, your car's over here." And so I went over there, and then the real supporters, Handaka and his friends, said, "No, Ajahn Brahm, that's not your car. The car's over here. They're trying to take it to their temple." And it's very close. I almost got kidnapped there. Well, not like kidnapped for money or something. They just wanted me to go to their temple to bless it or give a talk or something. It was a really close one. But that sometimes I'm a monk, and you like being a simple monk. So sometimes you don't want to go in a car. You like to walk. Because it's like the simplicity of it. If you get tired, you can stop and rest for a while. But the idea of being free of all of this, imagine what it must feel like. It's one of the best moments of my life, or times of my life as a monk, that time when you just were walking in Thailand. They call it in Thai like tudong. In Sri Lanka it's called charika. You just wander from place to place. You've got your bowl and you've got a little bag with everything you ever need. You don't need very much to live. As a monk in places like Thailand or Sri Lanka, you just wander. You walk from place to place, and if you get tired, you can just sit under a tree somewhere and meditate, and in the morning you can go out for arms round, and you always get something to eat. And if you need already a bathe, you can always go into any temple, and just as a monk, they'd always show you where the shower is, and so you could have a shower, find a nice, even more better, a nice river or a lake somewhere. It's a gorgeous time of your life, because everything I owned was on my back. And it was really light. It was heavy when you start off, but then you soon give a few things away. You don't need anything. You know, you're fit, you're healthy, you know how to sleep under a tree somewhere at night time, and you don't need a sleeping bag or anything because it's not cold. And you know just how to have your arms food in the morning. And actually where to go to get a meal, because you go to every little town, they have a little market, and in the morning, the market, they sell all sorts of fresh food. And so they can actually give you some hot food to eat. And so you did really, really well. And it's always get some water if you need some water somewhere. I loved that time. It was very, very beautiful, so free. And the nice thing is you didn't have any plans. So I really didn't know which way I was going to go, just walking. You come to a crossroads, and it was the case. You can go forward, you can go left, right, or you can turn around and go back again. Which felt the right way. And you had no places you had to be, no appointments, no schedules. You didn't need a plan. And imagine that, you were just totally free. And so your brain, your head was just so free as well. You didn't think, oh, I've got to get here by this time, oh, which way should I go? How many more days will it take to get to this place? All those thoughts weren't there. Did I have enough money to go? I didn't have any money. But you know, you'd always be fed. You know, always have a place to sleep, always empty places. And people knew what you were doing. You were a monk. So they let you just go anywhere. Brilliant. And how can meditation help with motion sickness? Because meditation helps with all types of sickness. It's an overreaction somewhere. There's no reason why you get seasick or motion sickness. It's just a bad habit. And after a little while, you can just watch that sickness when it starts to come up. When it's really strong, it's gone too far. When it first comes up, you can notice it and be with it and learn how to relax your body so it doesn't happen. What do you like about Calvin and Hobbes? Why is it not entertainment? Because it says some very powerful things about life. And one of the things which it says about life, for example, we already mentioned about aliens, extraterrestrial beings. And Calvin and Hobbes were having this conversation. Why don't aliens visit Earth? And I think it was Hobbes, the tiger, was a wise one. It should be obvious to you. This is extraterrestrial intelligence. Anyone who has intelligence will never come to this place. What intelligent being will come to planet Earth? Look how we treat it, and who we elect to be presidents of our countries and stuff. Hey, why is it not entertainment? I suppose, why is my talks in the evening not entertainment? Are you breaking your precepts by staying in here and listening to me? No, it's the entertainment which is in the precepts. It's like going to listen to performances, songs and whatever. But this entertainment here, not the songs which I sing to you, but the talks which I give, and the sadhu, 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 which you laugh at, and the jokes. That's got a purpose, and not entertainment for entertainment's sake. That is to encourage you, to give you some energy, some happiness, some joy after a long day meditating. And sometimes that's all you really need to get this positive way. And when you meditate, you don't take it, people take life over seriously. So this is how we can overcome that. Thank you for your kindness and wisdom. Much gratitude and metta. You know, some people have got a stammer, they repeat the words, and sometimes they write with a stammer. Kindness, much gratitude. Hi Ajahn, when sitting, what is a good way to know when to stop meditating? Don't stop meditating now. The best time to stop meditating is later. No, just your body and mind feels the right time. It's intuitively. But sometimes we get into a habit of only meditating for a short period. It's like a habit, that's all it is. And you know you can get much deeper and more peaceful, so why not carry on? So one of the things which I did to lengthen my meditations, because the longer you're having a good time, why not carry on? Was actually just to pause and just contemplate, not in lots of thinking, but just knowing. If I come out of meditation, what would it feel like? If I stay in meditation, what would it feel like? There's no contest. Coming out will be just disturbing again. Sitting in meditation will be more peaceful. It's always the better option. So I always chose the better option. Meditate longer. It's much more fun. I see that the Buddha has long hair tied in a bun, but his followers shave their head. Why is it so? Are others not equal to the Buddha? True, isn't it? That's not he's got a bun on the top, but he's got a flame on top of his head as well. Has any of the nuns got a flame on the top of their head? You know that when we had our first Buddha statue we had for Bodhinyana Monastery was one of the big meditation hall there. And it's only Ajahn Jacko and I were just organizing this. And so we said, let's have a Buddha statue without the bun on the top of his head. So it's just like an ordinary, just like any monk or nun. And without the afro as well, the little sort of curly things on there. Because the Buddha wasn't from Africa, he was from India. So we asked, the thing was being sponsored in Thailand. And when we asked, the sculptor said no. But then came the question, why? Why does it have to have that? Because it said this is a symbol of a Buddha. It's how you know it's a Buddha. Because there's other statues from that time of like Mahavira, the leader of the Jains, which I mentioned before. And that has no bun on it, on the top. So this is just the sculptor's way of indicating what's a Buddha and what's not a Buddha. Well, maybe a statue of another monk, or it could be of a king or something. And this is how we know it's a Buddha. And that's all it really means. And the flame is always supposed to be the flame of enlightenment. But that's not really that much in the suttas. So sometimes we try and keep it as normal as possible, because we all know those stories. When even the King Ajatasattu went to visit the Buddha in the bamboo grove outside of Rajaka, Veluvana. And he had to ask his doctor, which was Jivaka, which one of those monks is the Buddha? If the Buddha had that type of hairstyle and a flame, he would not have needed to ask. He would have stood out. And so the king had to point him out. That see that monk over there against the pillar, facing east. That's the Buddha. From that little story there, the people interpreted the Buddha always faced east. So that's why when we first built Bodhinyana Monastery, we put that Buddha statue there. It was only after when a senior monk, the first senior monk from Thailand visited, that the Thai community complained. Not the Thais here, somebody else. You're safe. And they said, you Western monks, you placed the Buddha facing the wrong way. It's got to face east. Now it's actually facing mostly westward, a little bit north, but it's certainly not due west, and it's certainly not eastward. And they asked the senior monk, have these Western monks, Ajahn Chakra and me, made big mistakes? And this monk, a real good disciple of Ajahn Chah, said, look, if the Buddha didn't want to face the way he was facing, he'd turn around by himself. And that totally stopped any complaints ever since. I really think that was Ajahn Jhana when he came visit. Anyway, so the Buddha actually looked the same as other monks. There's many examples of that. Dear Ajahn, time to time you mention stopping inner speech. Please elaborate on this. Sometimes it's hard to stop inner speech. You don't stop it. You realize it stops itself. So often in your day, you are silent. Like just then. This is one of those tricks. I've done it with you many times before. Is that I first did this in. There wasn't that many questions in here when I looked a few minutes ago. They multiply. So it's true. I thought it was only a few. Quite a lot. Anyway, when I taught people in Singapore, these are business people, really intelligent people, professors and CEOs and stuff, and they think so much. And so one day I challenged them. I said, look, it's very easy to stop you thinking. And you've heard me do this before. I said, now listen to me very carefully. And also listen to be mindful of your reaction in your mind as I'm speaking. Because as I'm speaking, you'll begin to notice something strange, that there'll be some pauses between my words. In those gaps between what I'm saying, what was happening in your brain? There it was again. You were silent. Not only do you realize how you have many moments of silence during your day, when you pay attention to it, you all experience how beautiful it is, how profound. It's not just beautiful like a sunset. It has this really great deep meaning and freedom to it. And after a while you realize you don't need to think, often in your meditation. Do you have any trouble with that? Could you feel the silence? And after a while you get used to it. And you can develop it. It becomes a friend of yours. You're not afraid of it anymore. And sometimes in Australia's a great country to have Buddhism in, I must admit. Because at night time the forests are quiet. Such a huge country. You only go, 60 kilometers south of Perth, and there's hardly anybody here. You're not on a flight path. You're not sort of next to a karaoke lounge. It's so peaceful here. And sometimes I've been living here for such a long time now, 37, 38 years or something, 37 years. And sometimes even I get stunned when you're walking. Just there was one in the afternoon a few days ago, and Jhana Grove was absolutely silent. You couldn't hear anything. And I had to stop because I respect that silence. It's so moving. It's so beautiful. It's so profound. To have this silence which just envelops you, embraces you, and you feel so comfortable in it. Thank you for the generosity of community groups and families who prepared Dana for this retreat. And that's not just a thank you, that's a wow. They come all this way and you see just the joy on their faces. And they come to feed you. They come usually a whole hour from Perth. It's not just an hour. They've been shopping first of all and cooking a lot of it and putting extra energy into it. You know, the first time when I started having alms food as a monk, And there's one day that I think we were invited to somebody's house to have the dana that day. And we forgot to tell the village we were not coming on alms round. And I thought the villagers, they won't mind, they have extra rice for themselves, they don't have to get up so early in the morning and cook for us monks and give us food. And so it'd be a day off for them. But later that afternoon, with the headmen and all the senior members of the village, they all came to ask forgiveness. I said, what do you mean ask forgiveness? You had a day off, a bit more of a rest. I said, that's not how we think. They thought, what did we do wrong? How did we offend you so you didn't come to our village to receive some food? And that really shocked me at first, but then you realized that just receiving the food wasn't it, it was them giving was important. They needed to give to their spiritual mentors. And they felt so bad when we never went there to receive some of their food. It's not we needed the food, but they needed to give. And every day, all these people who actually feed you they've all mostly been on retreats before. And they know what it feels like when they're fed by others. So if ever, when this retreat finishes, if you want to join in this, get a piece of the action, as they say. Just, contact the retreat manager, that's probably going to be lay half a while, and just put your name down on a list. Yeah, if it's a free day and there's a retreat on, can me and my friends come and feed everybody? You have to take a day off work. Maybe just, because Saturdays and Sundays is pretty easy to get food. A day off work and get a few friends. Have a wonderful time. It may cost you some money to get that food, but my goodness, you'll never regret it. So much joy you get when giving. How much money do I get paid by teaching? Absolutely zip, nothing. I just get more questions. Do I resent that? No way. I love it. Is everything happening by itself, and our sense of control over anything is an illusion? And does this mean we can allow ourselves to be at peace with anything or on everything that we do or that happens in life? Anything happens by itself. So much of life is, you're in, say, like the bus journey. It's like a flow. That's very Taoist, actually. They say just go with the flow rather than fighting it. It's much more peaceful. There's a lot of truth to that. But you can do something. What you can do, you can renounce some of the stupid things you do. Live more simply. And just stop more and be peaceful. You don't always have to be moving. Sometimes you make mistakes. I often make mistakes. And there's this one, he used to be a monk, but he still teaches meditation over at Dhammaloka on Mondays. That's Jacob. And he's a really good friend. And so when I was carrying all these papers in Dhammaloka one day, and I was just going into the office, and he just arrived for the Saturday afternoon meditation, and he said, Ajahn Brahm, how are you? You know what I said? I said, I'm getting there. You've got to be very careful if it's somebody you train, because they know all the answers. And so he looked at me and he said, where exactly is it you're getting to? And I was honest with him. I said, either to Karakata or to Fremantle. Those were the only two crematoriums and graveyards in those days. So whenever you say, I'm getting there, where are you getting? There's only two places you're going to go. That's why when sometimes people ask me, what happens when you die? You either get cremated or you get buried. That's not what I meant. That's what I meant. So anyway, you do have a bit of influence. This is Dr. John Libet. He did some amazing experiments on the will. One of the things which he did, I might as well mention this, Libet. And he had these experimenters. They had like a button on their left and had all electrical stuff on their hands. And they just freely decided when they're going to scrunch their hands. When they decided when they scrunch their hands, they pressed the button. But they also had this big electrical machinery on their brain, because they wanted to find out, just when you actually decide to move your hand, what's the time lapse between when you decide and when you actually move? And how does that work in the brain? And what he found out was actually the brain decides first. It's called readiness potential. And about something like 0.5 of a second after the brain decides, then you are aware of what you interpret as your free will deciding to move your hand. The brain has already decided before free will manifests in your awareness. So actually you're not willing it at all. The brain decides, and then you experience will, and then you act. That's really scary, because that thing which you can be mindful of and you assume is your will is not your will. It's just part of the process once the emotion has already started. There's not free will at all. But, he said, that once the brain has decided, you can actually counter that decision before you actually move your hand. So he said there's no such thing as free will, but there is free won't. I just like that language. In other words, you can renounce, you can stop, you can say no. And that's very much the idea of renunciation. That you can stop and change your path. Okay, sometimes I see faces that I feel so familiar with. Yes, me and the other monks, the beautiful nuns. Okay, no. During meditation, but I have no idea who they are. I'm curious to know what this is. Okay, so does that mean like limiters and things? Yeah, it's just a face. You don't need to know who they are. Who am I, anyway? Is that my name, Ajahn Brahm? Is it? I've got many aliases, like nicknames. The one I really like was given to me in Indonesia. And that's Ajahn Donut. And I really like that. The reason it's Ajahn Donut, I said, why do you call me Donut? And, it's because, donuts are delicious. So you're a delicious monk. So, we like you. So we want something which we like. But really, they said, because a donut is very sweet. Just like you, Ajahn Brahm, very sweet. And it's also a donut is very round. I cracked that joke years ago with Ayahasapanya. We were at some function somewhere, and she was asking me, are you going to be around next week? I said, I'm around all the time. It's true. But so, you're a donut because you're sweet, and you're round, and the most important thing, you're holy inside. The donut's got a big hole in the middle. So you call me Ajahn Donut out of respect, sweet, round, and holy. So anyway, it doesn't matter who those faces are. They're not scary at all, they're just faces. So if you really want to have some fun and you've got some good meditation, just draw moustaches on them. Just a patch over one eye and a parrot on the other shoulder or something. Mess around, because you find you can, you're not as scared. You've got the power, not the faces. Hi Ajahn, I found the way I watch the breath changes. Sometimes I'm the breath rather than watching it, and other times I'm separated from it and watching it. Is this okay to do either at will, or would it, something prolong, or process, I don't know, something to process. P.S. Are there any plans to extend Jhana Grove to allow more people on retreats? Actually, we do get more people on retreats. They come over from Jhana Grove, and they drive here, and they have spiders who come here as well, apparently. So the nicest thing is that, just the Dharma is open to everybody. So it's wonderful to have many people coming here, and just unlike any monks who happen to be over at Bodhinyana Monastery and any Anagarikas, and people who happen to be visiting, to invite them in. I'd like to invite everybody in. Sometimes we can't fit them all in, and especially now because people say COVID, what's it called, social distancing. So I told this to Venerable Nibbutto, because Nibbutto, he's an Indian monk over in Bodhinyana Monastery. He was actually from the Punjab. His family is Sikh, a Sikh family. And so I told him, it's just, who is this social distant Singh? Mr. Singh. He tells me terrible jokes, so I get my own back every now and again. So social distant Singh is a Sikh person. To extend Jhana growth? No, come on, we've only had this, 11, 12 years? And also, because it's supposed to have anyway, just 60 people, and that's really just enough to teach, I find. And if you have more than 60, just imagine how the interviews would be. You'd either not get a space in the interviews, or, that it would go on to 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, and it would just exhaust me. So 60 people, we aimed for that. This whole place was built for 60 people. 10 cottages, 6 people. Obviously the nuns' cottage, so the nuns can come here to meditate and get meditation instruction, especially the junior nuns. And the teacher's cottage, and there's the caretaker's cottage. And so retreat managers and cleaners and all sorts of others are most welcome here. So 60 was about right. And if we add more, of course we could have a bigger retreat center, but it becomes just less personal. The atmosphere changes in a big retreat. Just like in school, they used to say, having a class of more than 30 children, you haven't got that close contact between the teacher and the kids. Even now, that's when I was a teacher, 30 was the maximum. Although every now and again you got a few more in. But I think now it's about 20. Because if you have a class with more kids, you don't have the connection with the teacher. You can't really give information easily. So 60, I think, is the best number for a retreat center. But all we really need is just more retreats, and to get more retreats, you need more teachers. So really encouraging other people to come and teach as well. Oh, and also we're building, just getting the plans ready to build another retreat centre over in Melbourne. So that any one of you having to go to Melbourne needs retreats over there as well. Not yet, but it's coming. Thank you, Ajahn, for your kindness and entertainment during this retreat. The nuns and monks' peaceful presence. Thanks to Leha and Christina for organising it. But, no, there's no but here. And thanks to fellow retreatants for your contributions in making the retreat a peaceful and smooth operation. That's also really important to you, because you've all been harmonious. At least I haven't seen you arguing or hit each other. And you've kept your precepts pretty well, and your silence has not been perfect. But it's been noble. And that's the difference. Because if you're silent and people take that just so seriously, and you make a noise and they complain to Leha, don't let that person ever come to the retreat again. That's not Buddhism. It's just the kindness. You've been very quiet, and that's great. To our dearest, most wonderful Ajahn and his most softest teddy bear, we all love and appreciate and cherish, and thank you so very much. Beautiful retreat, as always. You once told me everything can heal. Can you please explain this to all, please. Not even physically. Physically, even if you have the very worst cancer, soon the cancer will die when you go. It's true. So all sicknesses are temporary. And that's one of the reasons why, that how can you heal sicknesses when they're terminal? And how you heal, the biggest sickness, of course, is the emotional sicknesses. Fear, anxiety, bad memories. That's why one of the supporters, that little doctor, because I've been, again, here in Perth about 36, 37 years now. And so when I came as a young monk, actually I'm still young, aren't I? But because you've been here such a long time and people have checked you out, it means that they trust you. And so whenever people have a really big problem, they usually come and ask for a solution. And sometimes you give amazing solutions. And this was that doctor I think I mentioned before, that when you saw him as a little kid when he was in our Dhamma school for kids, and I taught him in basic meditation, and then when I was going to school, like another kid recently, she's done her year 12s now, exams, and she was really concerned. She wanted to get into university, and she thought, no way she can make this. I think in the mock exam she did terribly. So what happens when you do terribly in your mock exams? You come to Ajahn Brahm, like give him some blessing. At the very least, it's not so psychic, just to encourage a person, have some confidence in yourself. And so she did well. She managed to get enough score to go to UWA. Yay! So anyway, she never expected that. So sometimes when you know people for such a long time, you can be an extra part of their family, and also just be someone who can really be of service to them in a totally different way. And I mentioned that girl who got pregnant, and I can't. Have you told your parents? No, that's your job, Ajahn Brahm. But this guy, he was a really good man, and he passed his all his degrees and became a doctor. And he was in, I think, Royal Perth. One Saturday morning, and he came to see me Saturday during the Jhana. And he said that he has to retire. And because him all those years, I said, why? All that study, all that hard work, all those exams, and he was like I think a registrar or something, just in the first years in a hospital. Why did you have to retire? And he told me the terrible thing which had happened that morning. He was on duty, one of his patients got really sick, and he was supposed to be looking after her. It was a Saturday morning, and she died. An unexpected death. Of course, later on they found out, what had killed her, and no one could blame anybody. It was just a little bit of bad fortune, one of those diseases which you didn't really pick up until the autopsy was done. But anyway, he died. She died. That's right. It was a young girl, about 23, 24. She died, and he was the doctor. So he had to go and tell the husband that, the love of his life, his wife, the one he committed to, was no more. He never expected that. It was like a tragedy. But it was just even worse, he said, when the man had to tell his two young kids they got no mummy anymore. And that hurt him so much. He was a sensitive man. And he said, look, I just can't do this ever again. I have to get another job, another profession. And he said it with a lot of emotion. And then because he trusted me, I told him, look, you've forgotten, you've misunderstood the purpose of being a doctor. You can't always cure people, they're going to die. Of course they're going to die. So if you think that you have to cure everybody, you'll be a failure many times. Your job is not to cure people. Just change one letter of that word. Your main priority is to care for them. And you never need to fail. if your main job is to care. Care for your patients. Care for their family. Really make caring the most important thing you do in your profession. And then you never need to feel a failure. And also, you'll find that when these tragedies do happen, the whole family will know just how well their wife was cared for at the end, and how well you care for everybody else. He got it straight away. Brilliant man. He went back to work. And then he became just a specialist. And he was the one who, when one of our monks, the monk was here the other day, Venerable Mudita, when he needed to have colonoscopy, I think it's called. I've got it right this time. Okay. Sometimes I'm gross and I can't remember the word sometimes. He wants his bum inspected because he was passing blood in his stool. But it was going to take forever on the public system. About a couple of months, he could be dead by then. And so he said, let's go private. And it's $10,000 was the going price if you went private. That's a lot of money. So anyway, Ajahn Brahm, so I asked, because, please excuse me, but most Sri Lankans are either engineers or doctors. I don't know why that's the case. There's a few others, which I really respect. But so I said, is there any doctors who do that? And I think they got the name of one of these Sri Lankan doctors who's supposed to be really excellent in his field. And I got the name and said, I know that guy. That's a guy I saved his job and career by telling me to care, not to cure. Give him a call. And of course, as soon as he heard it was one of Ajahn Brahm's monks, I think, was it 3 or 4 days? Not waiting for a month. You don't have to worry about the money, all paid for. The monk was really happy. He didn't have to wait and worry. And this man, it was just like, thanks to Ajahn Brahm for saving my career. I always remember that. I was just so happy. And he's just a lovely man, lovely doctor. And it's almost like I'm a second father to him, helping him. So there's wonderful sort of karma and karma vipaka and kindness and what it does for you. I just was... Anyway, that's so what happens. That when you don't try and cure anybody, always care for them. And I asked him also, I said, well, just if you don't try curing people, but care for them. How's your reputation as a doctor? And he said, I get many more cures that way. More people feel that they're cared for, their energy comes up, and there's extra caring power, extra curing power, rather. So more people survive these terrible diseases when they know they're being cared for. That's his number one priority, to care. In metta meditation, I have the feeling of joy, contentment, and kindness about the size of a soup bowl in my chest. That's good. But don't say that at night time in the afternoon, soup bowl. I've read that the Buddha says to fill your whole body with metta. Just soup bowl's enough for now. Just one soup bowl can fill my body very, very quick. If it's nourishing. But anyway, can you please explain how to expand the metta and what to do after the whole body is filled with metta? If the whole body, keep filling the room you're in with metta. And then keep filling Jhana Grove with metta. And keep filling Serpentine with metta. Keep filling West Australia with metta. The whole of Australia with metta. The Southern Hemisphere with, and the Northern Hemisphere too. The Milky Way with metta. And just keep on going until your loving kindness is boundless. No limits to it. That's what to do. It's not that hard to do. We're going to do a loving kindness meditation tomorrow. So you'll find that out tomorrow. A note of appreciation. Dear Ajahn, thank you very much for your inspiring talks and all the guidance on meditation. May you attain the supreme bliss of enlightenment in this life. Also, a huge thank you to Leha, Christina, and all the volunteers and Dana donors. May you all be happy and healthy and at peace. Is that loving kindness when you wish everybody to be healthy, happy, and peace? What if you don't want to be healthy? You know, we have a right to happiness, but we also have a right to unhappiness if you want to. It's true. So that's, goodness, it's great she's not here today, but that's an Indonesian girl. Many of you know who she is. And she was so fed up with everyone being so happy in this place, all smiling all the time. Says, it's probably not real, but for her, she felt miserable. And because everyone else was smiling, feeling miserable made it double misery. She not only just felt miserable, she felt guilty about being miserable. And so she came up to me this time and she wanted to leave. And she said, I feel terrible. Everyone else is happy in there, and that makes me feel even worse. And she was a girl that I went into the office. In those days, it was my little computer. I knew how to turn it on and print things there. And so I logged on and got out sort of, I think, Microsoft Word or something, got a piece of letterhead, got nice Gothic script. And it said, a license. You know, like you have these licenses, like marriage licenses or certificates you get from university. I tried to make it as fancy as possible, but I only had a few seconds. And my license was called Grumpy License. And it said, this license is awarded to, and I mentioned this lady's name underneath, and allows her to be grumpy for any reason or no reason at all times for the rest of her life. Let no one impede this freedom to be unhappy. And I signed it. Ajahn Brahm, you know, director of this or head of that or president of something else, and dated it. And I gave her the very first grumpy license. So she could be grumpy if she wanted it. She didn't need to be happy. And then take all the pressure of you. Why do you have to be happy all the time? That really sucks sometimes. Just because you're the head monk or the teacher, why do you have to be? But what happened, as soon as I gave her the grumpy license, she never expected that. So she laughed her head off, started smiling, and she wasn't grumpy at all for the rest of the retreat. You understand the psychology of that? You know, when you're really trying hard to be happy, it's really impossible. That's why I say you don't have to be happy. So I'm not going to wish you may be happy and healthy for the rest of your life. No. You can be miserable if you want to. And you do it with my full permission. Which means it makes it very hard to be. Okay. Yeah. Oh, that's right. So may you all be happy and well, if you want to be, but you don't have to. It's optional, it's not compulsory. What are some of the ways we can help the Buddhist community in addition to duties on retreat and giving dana? Thank you. May all of us be happy and well, if you want to be. You don't have to. And that dana is like giving people freedom. So if someone's really unhappy, you don't have to just go and give them a hug and just, oh, what's wrong? Can I help? No, it's our freedom to be miserable. So we respect that. If you want to be miserable, you can be. So don't try and change people, otherwise it makes people even more miserable about being miserable. So how you can help the Buddhist community? That's just to go and ask the Buddhist, ask Leha, ask Christina, especially if it's because this place has inspired you. There's all sorts of stuff you can do somewhere or other. Again, bringing the dana, help cleaning up the place, or I don't know what else you can do. There's always work to be done. And hopefully we never finish all that work. Otherwise there's no way for you to make loving kindness. So even though I don't know if, you did my breakfast dishes this morning, I just wanted to wash all those plates up. I said, no, that's wrong. I have to leave you something to do. Not out of laziness. I was very happy washing up my plates after breakfast. I said, that's being selfish. So, whatever you do, leave something for somebody else to do as well. Ajahn, I'm reading the Buddhist contribution to good governance. Oh, that one. It seems to apply well to parenting, yeah? Are there any other sources you can recommend related to parenting? I'm an expert on parenting. Just like marriage and marriage counseling and relationships. If you want to come and find about relationships and marriage counselling, you know where to come to. Why did they ask me? I've never been married. I haven't had any kids. What would I know? There's some just general truths. And one is, because I'm running out of time, there's one more question afterwards. This was one of those monks, because he was a Westerner, and just never wanted children to be brainwashed. And so these two parents came, they had their first kid. They're both Buddhists, I think English Buddhists. They had their first child, and they said, how should we bring up our child? Should we always take them to the Buddhist temple and brainwash them to being Buddhists, basically? Or should we give them no education on religion at all, or take them to the Buddhist temple on Saturdays and the Christian church on Sundays and the mosque on whenever the holy day is, or the what's it called, the synagogue on Friday? And that would confuse the kid. But just taking them to one place would just brainwash the kid. Or doing nothing would just leave the kid not informed. So what should we do? Because we love our child, we want to give it a good idea of religion or spirituality. What should we do? And the monk said this wonderful reply: just encourage and teach your child two things. First of all, to be honest. Because if you're honest with the child and encourage him in honesty, so that he really values truth above so much more, then he won't be happy until he finds something which satisfies him. So people will not be able to cheat him, fool him, deceive him, and he won't be able to deceive himself because he worships truth more than any other god or statue. And that's a good answer. But then also encourage him to question. So he'll always ask you questions. It'll drive you mad sometimes. Why, Daddy? Why, Daddy? Why, Daddy? But as long as you encourage him to question and also to respect the truth, in his life he'll be questioning, researching, until he finds a truth which satisfies him. And if you believe that Buddhism is the best, then he'll find that for himself. You don't have to force him, bribe him, or just expect him to follow your religion. If your religion is good, he'll find that for himself or herself. It was very beautiful, simple. Teach your children to be honest and to be questioning. Hi Ajahn, how old were you when you received your first jhana? Does it occur each time you meditate? If not, how often? Okay, we'll leave that question to the next time. And the reason he was laughing there is because I can't answer that. Because as a monk, it's the 8th Pajitya for monks. And we cannot answer questions about our own attainments or experiences or freedoms or enlightenment. That has to be kept a secret. Why? This is the Buddha's 8th Pajitya for monks. You cannot tell lay people about your personal attainments. And the best, or one of the answers about that was from the Venerable Chi Kwang. You may have met her before. She's a Korean nun who's over in Melbourne. Very wonderful woman, very wonderful nun. But she told me that it was her teacher over in Korea, South Korea, who told her, if you ever get enlightened or any state of enlightenment, don't tell anyone. Because if you tell them, you have to spend the rest of your life proving it. And that was actually a very, very good saying. If you stand out different than other people, people say, Ajahn Brahm, can you achieve jhanas? And if you can, just to make sure, can we have permission when you're in jhana to get the scalpel and cut you? And somebody even already asked me that to prove it. And of course I said no because I've quoted that Edgar Casey. I might convince you, but then no one else will believe it and other people will come and test it out. and I have all these scars. So the best thing is you keep it quiet and you teach. And as long as you're kind and wise and peaceful, that's enough to let people know. Other things has to be secret. The exceptions, the loopholes. You want to know the loopholes? Oh, come on, loopholes are good. The loophole is that when you're about to die, in your deathbed, that is usually the time you ask people, just in your life, as a tradition, in your life as a meditator, as a nun, as a monk, what have you experienced? And then it's usually the time when monks or nuns at the end of their life say what had happened. So that's almost like an exception. So the way to do that, I know there's one doctor here, you can get these sort of potions which you put them in the tea or the breakfast and my baked beans I have tomorrow morning. And it's just like I'm dead, or like I'm dying. So I'm there on the bed and I think, oh, I'm dying. And the doctor says, oh yeah, you're dying. He's not lying. We're all dying, just know how long it's going to take. And the doctor says, oh, Ajahn, you're dying. And do you achieve those jhanas or not? What happens? Because I think I'm dying. I say, okay, yeah, I can give you an answer. And then I don't die. And you got the truth. Okay, it's a bit of a scam. So it's not a good karma, so don't do that, okay? So that's just messing around at the very end. Okay, I've got 7 minutes over. I hope you don't mind, but it's the last question time. But, nice funny joke. Do you want to, it's only about a 3 or 4 minute story. Not yes, it's everybody. Because it reminds me, the 8th Pachitya, that's the 8th Pachitya rule for monks. It's an 8th Pachitya rule for bhikkhunis. And it's one of my favorite stories in the Vinaya for bhikkhunis. You know what's coming, don't you? And a couple of you were talking about that when you were cleaning out the toilets. Because in the time of the Buddha, the nuns' monasteries is usually either in town or just on the edge of town for safety reasons. So those days, they didn't have sewage systems like we have here in Jhana Grove. Just all the sewage went into a big bucket. And it was one of the nuns' jobs, it's their duties, to actually empty the bucket every morning. And so one of the bhikkhunis, when they got up in the morning, maybe got up a bit late, I don't know, they had to empty the bucket of urine and excrement. And instead of emptying it in the usual place, it was a bit of a walk away, they just threw it over the monastery wall. Like the wall we have over there. And when you have a monastery wall, you don't know actually what's on the other side of the wall. It's early in the morning, no one will be walking there that time in the morning. So she threw it over the monastery wall, but it just so happened there's something which really should be part of the Dhamma. It's called Murphy's Law. If it can happen, it does. And so they had this gentleman who was all dressed up because he was going to the palace to meet the king to negotiate a contract for his business. And so he was going there thinking about the contract in his best clothes, all cleaned up, when this bucket of shit came over the wall. All over him. Now, if that was you, how would you respond? He was so angry, so irate, so upset. How can these bhikkhunis do that to him? And along the street there, because it was early in the morning, it wasn't fully light, so they had these little torches, like lit torches along the road. So he picked up one of those torches, with flames. I'm going to burn down this monastery. These aren't real bhikkhunis. These are just terrible people. I don't know why they do this to me. They should have more restraint and more mindfulness. They can't get away with this. I'm going to burn down their monastery. And as he went into the monastery, he saw one of the gatekeepers, or one of the supporters. And the supporters, this man, said, "Why are you so angry? What are you doing with that torch? I'm going to burn down the monastery. It's a terrible monastery. They aren't real nuns. Look what they did to me." And the gatekeeper looked at him, saw this brown stuff dripping down his fine clothes, and said, "Wow, you have been blessed by these holy nuns. This is not just an ordinary blessing. This is very rare and special." I said, "I don't know where you were going, but my goodness, that is so fortunate, so lucky." It's amazing what people will believe about monks and nuns. I'll tell you about Ajahn spitting on the general, rubbing it in, and calling it holy water. So anyway, this guy, was gullible enough to believe this. And the gatekeeper said, look, this is really incredibly lucky. Just go home, get sort of washed up, and just, get some new clothes on, go to the king. Something really good is going to happen to you, I'm sure of it. So that's what he did, and he went to the palace, in a clean suit. And then the king awarded him this really lucrative contract. He was really great for his business. And so, of course, you know what business is like. People go around telling their friends, if you really want good luck in your business, because business is very hard sometimes, you know what it's like. If you really want good luck in your business, go and get some holy you-know-what from those nuns. It worked for me. Look at me. My business is thriving now. So any of you having business problems, ask for a real blessing. And of course, what happened next was the Buddha heard about it. And so, nuns, come over here. You were really lucky that time. Because you had a smart-talking gatekeeper or attendant, or whatever it was, who convinced this fool of a businessman that this was holy blessing. But don't do that ever again. So that's the 8th rule for Patiti. For monks is not to claim your psychic powers or meditation attainments. But the 8th rule for nuns is don't throw a bucket of shit over the monastery wall. And if you look at it, it's there. I'm not exaggerating, that's a story. So sometimes when you study this, the Vinaya or the Dhamma, sometimes it's fun. Okay, enough. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Okay. Sorry for that, because I really respect it. We know that story, and it's really funny. So I laughed my head off when I read that in the suttas, especially in Pali. Cracked up big time.